And it says this hangout on air is live. We are live. Yeah.
Crikey.
Honestly, I didn't really do too much research on you. Ah, let me look at this Twitter. It's Sean Kieran. Oh, let me click on you.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
what do you focus on?
Oh, I'm a dev from the UK, southwest of the UK. Got 20 years experience. I know I only look like 25, but I'm a little older than that. So yeah, been writing code for 20 years. I've done just about every role in the industry. And I've currently, the last couple of years, I've been working in a company focusing on call center telephony software embedded in Salesforce for my sins. So,
Telephony. Oh, you mean that Erlang stuff, or no?
no. I work for a company called New Voice Media, and the part of the product that we work on is the outbound dialer. So sales teams will be collecting lists of leads and using that to generate a sales campaign to call people up.
Yeah, they use your software because they call me every 15 minutes.
That's it. I put your name in there especially. So no.
I'm trying to get my name, or I'm trying to get my phone number to like convert to a 900 number. I don't know if there's 900 numbers in. You say UK, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want from now on. I want when businesses call me, I want to charge them by the minute, like $1.99 per minute, because I'm using up all my daytime minutes on these recruiters calling me to work in some small town I never ever heard of for like $20 an hour. You know, I'm like, hell, you're taking up my daytime minutes, man.
The contractor guys that I know have second phones. So when they're looking for a job, they turn their second phone on. They turn it off for the rest of the time.
Yeah, that's pretty
Because
smart.
recruiters, they just badger you, don't they?
So you said 25 years. You've been
20 years.
20 years. You've been building systems.
Yeah.
So whenever I'm at like software conferences and I'm sitting amongst a whole bunch of strangers at a table and no one's talking to each other, I try to open it up, you know, and I ask this question. I say, has software over the years gotten more complicated or easier?
That's a good question. So I think my answer to that, in my experience, is that it's got more complicated. The reason that we've got a lot better tools, the tooling is better. I started off, my first job in software was writing reports using Delphi, all in Delphi 1. So I was writing, actually we had a 16-bit version that ran on Windows 3.1, and that product shipped on floppy disks that were sent in the post. So there was a lot of complexity around that, in terms of, hey, if you got it wrong and you sent out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of CDs in the post, floppy disks in the post. Do you even know what a floppy disk is? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I was around.
Are you old enough?
At an early age, I remember the 5 1/4. I think it was 5 1/4.
Yeah. That was the B drive, the big ones.
Yeah, my father used to play Flight Simulator, and so I think he had a couple of those 5 1/4s to play his game on the PC. I remember it.
Yeah. So I mean, but what you had then, you basically had some kind of it was a desktop product, so it was kind of like Windows Forms, and it talked to a local database. That database did, the users could back it up and stuff. But that was relatively simple and constrained. I mean, whereas these days, I think there are lots more moving parts in software. So I was looking at from Evolve, and the guy from Microsoft, I forget his name, was talking about the authentication stuff that Azure AD is doing, which is all really exciting and really good. But we didn't have any of that. Whoever was on the computer started the software and just used it. So, we didn't have any multi-tenancy. You didn't talk to a server. There were no web services. It was a much easier thing to do, but you could do much less. Whereas nowadays, with software being distributed and having much wider reach, is it's much more powerful. Software can change people's lives.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been like programming for I think a little over 13 years, and it I feel sorry for college graduates that are coming out of computer information science. Like there's so much that is absolutely essential for you to be productive when
Yeah.
hired. And so the I don't know if you've been like uh, observing my technical blog or some of the videos that I've had, but almost every conversation that I have with a random stranger always talks about social intelligence. And so yeah, it's not just complicated on the technical factor. My phone is blowing up. Um, so it's not just complicated when it comes to like data structures and algorithms, right? Because that essentially I think is a science. It's what you do with it that becomes more of an art
Yes.
or craftsmanship. But a huge part that I think is associated to complexity is managing relationships
Yes.
amongst peers,
Yeah.
very hungry junior developers, very established or stuck in their ways senior developers, and that honestly
Yeah.
that's the part that I've been struggling with. But so, and to your point, yeah, in regards to the technical side, web services, security. I choose not to do web development
Right.
because I don't want to learn a new JavaScript framework or library.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Do you think we're overpaid? Do you think that we're not paid enough, or you think that supply meets demand and everything is good?
I think it should be supply meets demand. I think the key thing, I mean, okay, let me answer that in a sort of round-the-way fashion. I think the key thing that we do as software developers, so you and I as developers talking to each other, when we'll talk about nitty-gritty, how we build something, whether it's right or wrong. You might have a strong opinion. Like take JavaScript. JavaScript is crazy with this these days. Everybody's religious. Everybody's got T-shirts, flying flags. You've got to use this framework. You've got to use that framework. Oh man, you can't use classes in ES6 because it's got to be functional. And if you use classes, you're just playing wrong and shouldn't exist. And that is, who gives a shit? Nobody. The customer doesn't care. I listened to you on .NET Rocks, and you were saying, write business software. That's what I do. I write business software. I don't write languages. I'm not a computer science graduate. I'm a maths graduate. I build software because I love building machines that run on a computer that add value for a customer. And that to me is the key thing. The end user has to get some payback out of it. So of how we're paid, a lot of development, I think, is a lot of development and talks about the technology stack. The technology stack is really, really important, because its tools are evolving and techniques are evolving, and it allows us to build better and better software. But the key thing, the reason that we're doing this, or that you and I as business app developers are doing this, is because we want to add value to the customer, to the end user. And doesn't give a monkey's how we build it, as long as it works, it's fast. That's all they care about. It's like in a car.
So
go ahead.
No. So you're saying with the car, what?
It's like I get in my car, I turn the key or put my key in the slot, press the button, whatever it is, and I drive off. I don't care about how the carburetor is built, fuel injection is built, or whether it is a carburetor or fuel injection. I just want the thing to move, not break down, get me from A to B, keep me warm and dry and comfortable. There are very few people who want to care about the carburetors. or
So
less.
to that point, I'm going to be devil's advocate and say, well, honestly, this is honestly my opinion is, so the client doesn't care, right? Um, what the client cares about is if that software is successful, because I've never heard of a client that doesn't want their software that they're paying for to be successful and lasting, sustainable. Then as someone that prefers greenfield projects, but often has to work with teams of varying skills, right? Skill levels,
Yep.
and also maintaining from time to time legacy code. I care about how that system is built because I'm the one that is going to be scrutinized, every week or every couple of weeks, or maybe at the end of each month about, Scott, where we at? Scott, we done yet? Scott, what's holding this up, right? And so I care a lot about not necessarily the third party libraries or frameworks. I don't care about that stuff. Not as much. I'm sure that they have some value,
Yeah.
but what I do care about is maintainability. What I do care about
Yes. Yeah.
is taming the beast, because I think
Yeah.
when building software, it can get out of hand like really really quickly, and so I want to keep it on lock and keep it
Yeah.
tame. I don't want to just get them wild on me, and then all of a sudden we start throwing bubble gum and toothpaste just to like glue things together. So that's kind of my response to it.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. If I sounded like I was saying software shouldn't be maintainable, it absolutely should. I was talking more about particular tech stacks. So, you might get something, well, we knock out SPA and you to maintain it. So some people might say, well, the first thing you need to do is throw it away and use React or Angular because that's what everyone's doing, and that's the best thing. It's really the level that I'm talking about. Maintainability and clarity of code. That's my. I agree with you. That's what we should be doing. Computers, any idiot can write software that a computer can. Good developers write software that humans can understand. It's about that comprehension. It's about the literacy. It's about the clarity of the code, the clean code. That makes a difference because it gives the customer that maintainability and stability. Because no software just gets written once, shipped. Hey, that's it. It's perfect. We'll never ship. It lives here. It's got to be a living beast. And that's really where, I guess, that's the sort of thing in software that I'm most passionate about, is clarity, clean code, and making it able to be, the intention of the code to be understood. So that's why I liked your quote that I retweeted. What do you do if you don't understand software quality? You invent a process.
Oh yeah, I do.
When you said on .NET Rocks, and I thought, yeah.
Yeah, there's also another quote that I made that I didn't really catch until I actually watched the episode I did with Scott Blashin. I recorded with him yesterday.
Wow, cool.
Yeah. So you know who he is.
Work with a guy who used to work with him. So yeah.
Yeah, and so I forgot what I said. Oh, I said that essentially the people that are responsible for the software being built aren't the ones building it. And what I mean by that is basically the stakeholders that don't understand what goes into successful, lasting software are the ones that are pretty much dictating how the software gets built, and then holding the developers responsible, or basically making them scapegoats when the software version can't go past 2.0 because it takes so long to extend it based on the way the code was hacked together. But so you mentioned earlier, I have this like radar that gets triggered whenever I hear like functional. And so it's kind of like a motorcycle. I hear a motorcycle, I immediately like become attentive. And when I hear someone say functional programming, I'm like, huh, what? So you mentioned that when you were talking about, JavaScript programming and how, classes, yo, that's so played out. Who writes classes anymore, yo? If you're not functional, then you are incompetent.
Yeah.
Um, well, have you explored the buzz or why there's certain enthusiasts that are religious about
Yeah,
functional
yeah, sure,
programming?
sure, definitely. I mean, that's sharp is I just love F sharp. I write very, very little of it because there's never been anything that tips me over into putting it into production. So I put it into production, it can't just be a every couple of weeks. It's going to be something that I'm going to live with and keep writing F sharp through that software. And I've come close to that with some internal tools yet, but not my employer nor any software I write out of work has given me that opportunity. But I think the F sharp is really the functional software that I read about, look at, and you just get moments in reading it. Sometimes it can get too dense, right? There's too much information in one place, so you need to spend a lot of time in it, a bit like maths, but it's just so clear. And there's just such clarity in code. I forget what it was I was reading the other day, but it was a piece of F sharp. And it'll come to me in a minute. But I just smiled, and it was just because of the line was written. It was just so good, just so easy to read and so pleasant to read. I want to spend time. That's what I aspire to, is writing software that is clear, well structured, well understood, understandable.
Yeah. So this is
I'm not saying
what
I manage it, but
no. So this is what I've observed is as a human being, I can still butcher
yes,
code written in F
yes,
sharp. You
yes.
can look at my Stack Overflow posts between legitimate questions or me requesting a code review,
Mm.
and they're like, Scott, your code is interesting. It's interesting the way you did that, Scott. "Quote unquote
Yeah, yeah,
interesting." They use that term, or they say, "I wonder why you chose to
yep.
la." So, but it's I don't know. I hear the term that F sharp is information dense. I forget the term that they give to it, where basically you
Mm.
could you could you could do a lot with a concise piece or
Yes.
snippet of syntax. But something that you mentioned that I'm curious you might be able to explore is are you into automated testing?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, you were going to
So
be
you're
my
going to tell me about left-handed goat. What's it called? Canopy.
Kennedy.
Canopy, the F sharp library for automated web testing.
Oh no, I don't do well. I'm not familiar with
Okay.
that, but I'll research that. No, I was just going to say
Cool.
so when writing unit tests or whatever you want to call it, I'll say automated tests because people argue with me on the definition of unit tests. Um, you can still write your unit tests in F sharp, and if you do have some areas of your code that are pure functions,
Mhm.
and it has some complexity within that function or whatever that function trickles down to into its client calls, you can leverage property-based testing. And
Yeah.
if you're not familiar with property-based testing, for the whopping 20, I think I'm up to 27 subscribers now. For the whopping 27 subscribers that may be viewing this conversation, property-based testing, which I give I'm a conference speaker for Automation Guild, which is in January. It's an online conference. I go over property-based testing, in which it's basically generating edge cases,
Right.
and you can basically challenge your assumptions about the characteristics of a function. And so to make a long story short, you can still like bang out C sharp and if you believe that you are comfortable with F sharp and you want to sneak some F sharp in there and then slowly more and more F sharp until like it no longer becomes alien, it just becomes a piece of the software, then you can inject some unit tests, some F sharp, and maybe some property based tests, and then slowly take over the code base with more and more F sharp. So I mean, that would be my strategy, but I haven't really done it in practice.
Yeah, that's a cool approach. The web testing side, which is basically fake build, is something that I want to start writing. But the web testing side, what that Canopy, I did say that, is another good way. It's a DSL written in F sharp to test web applications. Basically, going, click the button, log in, and check that there's things there. I've spent some time with that, and that's really good. So you don't have to compromise your existing code base or anything, or not compromise, but introduce a new technology into it when you're not ready or comfortable to use it outside. Similar to what you're saying about the property-based testing. What is that? Is that FS check? Is it? I can't remember.
Yes, it is. It's been a while. It is FS check, because the original with Haskell is quick check, I think.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I think it's FS check. So I know the tests that I have, these are like the frameworks that I pull into my automated tests. FS unit.
Yep.
FS check for the property based. I think it's FS check, and then I do in unit. And I do FS unit dot X unit, I think, are the namespaces that I pull in. And between me writing unit tests and then the FS check for property based tests. And so it's cool. Like I'll like put in 100,000 or 1 million different test inputs for it to generate, and it catches stuff. It may not catch stuff. There's times where like the default is 100 and it may not catch anything, and then I'll put in 10,000 and it still may not catch anything. But once I put in like 100,000 or 1 million, it finds some scenarios that are really edge cases that honestly I don't think a human being would catch. It will only be part of production after like it gets hammered by the masses. So
yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. I think it was Seaman, the Mark Seaman. Mark Seaman, the Danish guy, he did .NET Rocks on it that I caught, and it did sound really, really good. I was listening to it in the car.
This Canopy, is this a record and playback type of?
So you basically write a script, which is a F# DSL. So it compiles a .NET executable essentially, and you can do it in LinkPad if you want. And that script will just do things. You can say things like, go to this URL, find the field called username, type in Sean, find the field called password, and type in let me in, then click the button with the ID of login.
How mature is this tool?
It's quite mature. It sits on top of Selenium as well. So yeah, I mean, it's got the maturity of Selenium. It's just a driver and a syntactic sugar over the top of it. Syntactic sugar isn't a term I use. I don't want to make it trivialize it, because good syntax is the key to all goodness in software.
When we wrap up with this conversation, can you just add a comment pointing to the URL where people can find it?
Just looking that up now, actually.
Because I'm really interested. I look for reasons to use F# in a professional setting. So yeah.
Giving you that in the chat. Oops, hang on. I'll share my screen in the chat in Google here. Cool. There you go.
I see that. And should I share my screen? Hold on, where am I at? Oh crap. So I'm about to share my screen and show the web page.
Yeah, cool. I could have done that, couldn't I, if I thought?
And present to everyone, and then when I go back, oh crap! When I go back, how do I go to? All right, right here. All right. So yeah, I never heard of this. Like, yo, this is so valuable having a conversation with you.
It's super cool. You scroll down, you'll see some of the syntax in it. There it is in section 4. I mean, that is just crazy. It's just so simple. And if you've ever done any Selenium or SpecFlow or something like this, then SpecFlow is a different tool. But if you've ever done any Selenium and C Sharp, then this syntax is just crystal clear.
I introduced, yeah, I introduced ODUI back in 2010 to my company when I was just messing around Visual Studio, and I was like, "Yo, what's this ODUI project?" And then
Yeah.
that was a record and playback. But yeah, since then I kind of avoid. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Let me look at this real fast.
Mhm.
Assert that the element with an ID of welcome has the text welcome. All right, so the pound sign means some type of ID.
Yeah, it's sort of like CSS selector stuff. I'm not a massive web dev, but yeah.
Yeah, neither am I. All right, and then there's okay. So let me go back to. Let me stop sharing. Yeah, and you see me?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I was going to ask a question. Oh yeah. So here's my ignorance slash beef with record and playback tools is I think they're great for build tests or smoke tests, but I think they're absolutely dangerous for regression testing. Um,
Okay.
unless I'm doing something wrong or there's just something I don't know about. I feel like as soon as there's an enhancement to the UI, then like you end up having to reinvent the wheel again. Or is that accurate or no?
I think there is. I think that is accurate in my experience. I spend significantly more time writing and maintaining UI tests than I do writing the feature. However, I mean, that experience is driven trees-wise, and there's a lot of stuff going on in a Salesforce UI. But I think that would still be quite true. It's quite intensive. My experience with this F# DSL is it's very, very easy to write and maintain those tests. But if you move something in your UI, that you'll break your test. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
But if you take that to a BDD driven approach where the test isn't, I mean, unit testing, I mean, a lot of people with unit testing, they go, man, I've got this function, I'm going to test this function and I'm going to make sure that 1 and 1 equals 2 and 1 and 2000 is 2001 and all these things. But when you test at the higher level when you're actually clicking the button, up the ability to walk through a scenario that your users are going to do the software and see if the outcomes are as you'd expect it to be.
Mm-hmm.
So when I enter my username and password and click login, I should be taken to the home screen and I should see a digest of whatever, my emails for the day, whatever that is. And that test has a lot more value.
I agree.
In my opinion.
No, I agree. I think it just requires a lot more effort, and well, I'll just leave it as I think it requires a lot more effort, and sometimes I'm not sure if it will always generate abundance in regards to return on investment.
Yes.
But that might just be my misunderstanding because I don't actively work in that area anymore. When I was a junior developer, that's what I focused on. Not really Selenium, but in-house tools. But here's something that I think would be better. I don't think it's supported, but the difference between this is what I think. The difference between like a suite of unit tests versus a suite of I don't know, you call it functional tests or whatever, is unit tests is living documentation and well based on a statically typed language, and so when it won't the solution that may include the test project just won't compile, right? If certain if anything is off, right? Like if any dependencies are unexpected, as long as you're referencing, another class, object, etc., then like you get notified ASAP or as soon as possible when there's a breaking change, right? So that's the benefits of writing unit tests. And I'm not sure if I'm using the right term. Do I call it functional tests? Or
I guess that would work for me. Yeah. That would work for me. I mean, they tend to be user interface tests or integration tests, people call them, but I get a little bored with arguing as to what a test's a test, right? It just works at a different level.
All right, so when you write an automated test that exercises the user interface, how about that? That's a really long,
Yeah,
I pretty much get the definition, right? When you write an
UI
automated
test.
test, a UI test, thank you. So when you write an automated UI test, what would be cool is if the ID of a control was statically mapped to the code that's testing it. So the compiler would enforce and recognize that the ID isn't a string, right? Or the ID is not a long. The ID is of type ID, and it's mapped. The compiler will recognize an ID as no longer being. It's hard for me to articulate, but if there were a way where you can any changes that you make, the compiler would still have to compile it, then that would make things a lot easier to test. I don't know how to articulate that.
No, I understand what you're saying. So sort of static checking. So in that, going back
you.
to that canopy example where he's got the hash welcome or pound welcome, meaning find an item, something with the ID welcome. And if you have that solution as your light that was being tested, then something run through those tests, and that's going to be very difficult to do, isn't it? So I was going to say, what you've just said is something would run through those tests and check, find an ID of welcome on that page. The trouble with that, though, is the first line is the URL and web test. How do you, because that all comes back down to routing, how are you going to know, how is it the test to know which actual piece of razor, if it's MVC or whatever it is going to fire it up?
So here we go. I'm not the brightest person, but F# already has this notion of type providers, right? And so I had used my very first type provider a couple weeks ago, in which I parsed a JSON file, and I recorded a video that demonstrated an overview of it. So F# type provider, maybe theoretically, will parse that HTML, that razor syntax, and it will basically have or generate the types. I don't know the internals of how that stuff works, but I think in theory you can do it. It just takes some investment and a couple bright minds to pull it off.
Yeah. Or you get about getting quick feedback. So if you modularize it, if you've got your tests relating to the piece of software, if it's an API or web page, then you should have some kind of CI that runs really quickly and maybe does a pre-test before you check in, before it accepts a check-in, or that is quick enough to just run on the developer machine. That would be cool as well.
Yeah. I actually want to research this, but I'm pretty far removed from the HTML stack.
Because you're mainly XAML and Xamarin, yeah?
Yeah, I'm essentially native applications between desktop and mobile, and apparently test automation. But I think when I say test automation, people think the high level UI tests, which I could do. I just don't want to maintain it. Yeah, so that's essentially it. But yeah, we just generated some ideas. I learned about Canopy and a potential a candidate for another type provider that may help out with UI tests. So
that's pretty cool. That would be pretty awesome, actually.
Tomas, I can't say his last name. Petricek or something like that.
Petricek, yeah.
And Mark Seaman, what they think. And then I know what they're going to say. They're like, that's interesting, Scott. You should go ahead and lead the way. I'm like, but
yeah, that's I need to invent another few days in the week to even try working on that stuff. But
yeah.
You do a lot of test-driven development, is that right? From
professionally, like how can I not? And until I have, I don't know, I have my own belief system, right? I don't know everything, but my thought process is until there is a programming language that has been adopted by the industry that will enable a compiler to actually enforce making illegal states unrepresentable. Until I can rely on the compiler to do that for me, then I believe I have no choice but to have checks and balances and to ensure that every business requirement has a mapped or correlated automated test. And that's my workflow. That's how I feel good about.
Did you
my
say every
status.
business requirement has a correlated test?
Yeah, as
Cool.
long as it's business. Yeah.
Because a lot of times I see in TDD, people think every function I write, every class I write, every method on that class is against it.
No.
But what you're saying there is the business, so you're tying it back in to the business value that is delivered.
So I won't say that those people are wrong. It's just those people, they look at the definition of what a unit test is and they take it as gospel. All right. And maybe they're correct when it comes to the pure definition of a unit test, but I don't care about the pure definition of the unit test. I care about being successful with whatever task I'm handed, right? And so the way that I operate is, remember, I do native application development, whether it's mobile or desktop.
Sure.
And so I don't care if this framework for building applications doesn't support XAML or data binding. I don't care. I'm creating a view model regardless, because a view model is a mediator. It's going to sit right in between your presentation and your domain logic. And so the reason why I'm saying all this is because I will create view models, right? Well, I create my tests. In my tests, I go ahead and I assume that there's a view model that's gonna be there, and this view model is going to have usually a load method, a load operation, and it's going to have some commands that represent the selection of an item within some type of list view or a button that's clicked, right? And so those commands are going to represent those type of operations. And so the reason I'm saying all this is because I write automated tests that target the operations on the view model, because everything else that the view model calls are just implementation details. And I don't care about the implementation details. I care about the behavior. And why would I want to go through all the work of testing these low-level functions or methods if it's ultimately tested at a higher level? When you express that integration tests have the most bang for the buck, I completely agree, and it's the same thought process. So
just back to what Fowler, I think it was Fowler, wasn't it, came up with the term subcutaneous testing, just under the skin. So the view model is the closest thing to the user interface. So I'm not going to test the user interface because that's painful. It's hard work. You need specialist stuff. But hey, the view model is doing everything, and I can easily test that. I can use NUnit, whatever else it is that I want to, FS unit or anything else that I want to do to test it.
And this is something else.
And you're essentially exercising the page.
What's that?
The view, and you're essentially exercising the functionality that is presented to the end user.
Yeah, so this is what I've noticed is when I go to TDD approach, and I'm essentially starting at the boundary, or the edge of whatever interface that is exposed. Or essentially, to make a long story short, I'm testing the interface, right? To
Yep.
me, I know the view model is a concrete class, right? But in system talk, it's an interface, right? It's what the presentation relies on in order to get a job done. So where's my train of thought going? Oh yeah. So I'll do TDD, right? And that is going to flesh out the happy paths. Okay.
Yep.
Are you still with me? Okay. And I don't care about UI at all, right? So my workflow, when people scratch their heads, is I don't care about the UI. I don't care about a database. I don't care about a web server. I don't care about any of that. I just care about my domain logic being as pure as possible. And when I have that solidified, when I've laid down the foundation, then I will put up just enough UI. I don't care where the controls are. I don't give a damn about the layout at all.
Yep.
I'll just throw controls on the wall, some list views, and I will just enough UI to flush out any edge cases that my original automated tests didn't see, right? And it will flush out some edge cases. And I'll do that for basically for every view model that I have. I'll throw up just enough UI to test at the interface UI level. That's going to flesh out other conditions that I didn't account for. And once I get all that, because for me, I want to nail down and correct all the anomalies as soon as possible. Because I mean, it's popular belief that anomalies become way more expensive when they're caught later. So if I can nail everything down as quickly as possible, once that's solidified and I feel really good about that there's very few anomalies that are obvious and emphasis on obvious, then I'll spend the last 10% of this project polishing the UI and then adding the actual repositories that are going to touch external systems. Because before that, my repositories are just mocks. And so that's my workflow, and it works for me. So
sounds
it
really
also
good.
requires discipline, which most people aren't willing to let me explain to them. But it is what it is.
Discipline in the sense of having a structured approach to how you build things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that you'll hear me venting and complaining about a lot is like, when a client is paying me to do professional work, one is it takes so much time to prove that your code works by launching the entire application and navigating to a page and then clicking some controls, stepping through the debugger, step through some methods, and then hover your mouse over some values and be like, yeah, that looks good. And you do that every single time you write a snippet of code, like that's where most of the cost is in debugging. And so I don't want to go down that path. I think with TDD, you're actually spending more time constructing and extending than you are stepping through code and debugging. And so I just wish that employers recognize that. I wish that they were able during the interview process to really understand a developer that is a candidate applying for a job, what their workflow is, so that the employer can understand where their money is going in regards to the workflow that developer is using to solve their problem. Because if you spend all your time launching the application, especially if it's mobile, it takes a long time to launch a mobile app and then set state and then go through the debugger. Like you go through that cycle and you go through that cycle like every 5 minutes, all day, all week, all month. Like I guarantee someone that goes TDD is going to be way more productive, and they're going to save at least a third of that investment that the client has. But that's just my dogmatic belief. So.
I think it's again in what you do there, it's having that discipline and having that structure and writing code that is clear and related to the business requirement. What you're doing then is you're understanding your software and you're baking that business requirement into the software. And it's, and so if you were to be on a contract there and you go and you move off somewhere else and somebody else came along and picked that up, they'd be able to see the structures in there, they'd be able to relate it to your tests. They, it sounds like code would be, relatively clean, and if there were some areas of confusion or that weren't so clear, maybe there's complexity in that piece of the functionality, the test should shed light on it.
Yeah.
So
but they have to basically embrace automated tests in order for them to get a hint. Because I mean, to what you said, I do believe that automated test is living documentation. You see exactly what the setup is.
Yeah.
You see exactly what the operation under test is. And you see exactly what we're verifying for once the operation is tested or executed. But people have to, to this day, the majority of developers, they don't know how to they do not know how to prove that their code works programmatically, even though they get paid to program. And so, like, a lot of maintainers, man, I don't know. I'm not going to rant about it because I'm really sensitive about this topic, because I don't understand how the industry allows us to behave this way. If you notice, there's no such thing as a software engineer. There's software craftsmen, right? Which essentially is the same thing, but craftsman is someone that goes above and beyond to take pride in their work. But an engineer complies with expectations of how work should be done. But we don't use that word. So
I just like to call myself a developer, because there's so much, people have different, it's back to factions again, isn't it? There's this software craftsman movement. What I like about that is that people are saying, you know what, I'm going to make sure that what I build is built really well. And I think that's the key thing. And I think an engineer can do that as well. And engineers, would say, I build things, the engineering that I do is of very high quality. It's about the quality that you bake into that software, and the thought and care, I guess.
Yeah.
But what I dislike about things like, because there was this whole software craftsmanship movement, and it becomes a thing. It's like Agile with a capital A. It's like, Agile's great, but then there's
it's owned by developers,
and we all worship.
But the difference, I think, and I'm wrong about a lot of things, so I really value you correcting me. But like, the difference between the software craftsmanship movement versus the Agile movement is software craftsmanship is developers, right? It's owned by developers. It's run by developers, right? We own this, right? The Agile movement, it was meant for developers, right? Most companies, we're Agile, right? They have the nerve to ask me at an interview, do I know what Agile is, and have I worked in an Agile environment? And what they really mean is, do you practice Scrum? And I don't think Scrum is Agile at all. Agile is a developer's behavior. And so, like, they don't even understand that it comes from the Agile manifesto. You say that, they're like, what? So it's like they stakeholders, business owners took it, business analysts took it. Everybody embraced Agile, but the software developer himself. And he continues to do waterfall. He continues to blame software for being too complex, and it takes really long. And starting off, there's going to be a stabilization period. You're not disciplined. If you exercise professionalism, then this will alleviate some concerns quicker. But I don't know how to say that nicely. So
no, I agree with you, and I think it's something you said something else when you were on that .NET Rock, something like about you can work in a company code base is basically is not as clean as it should be. And I think Rich and the other guy were talking about, hey, you can try and influence that and try and make it better. And you were saying, no, just leave, because you're never going to win that battle. So what I heard from that is there is companies and cultures. It's about culture in the team. If you and I are writing software on our own, we're the team, we can fully influence that culture, minute to minute, second to second. If we're one of 30, 50, 100 other developers in a company, it's much, much, much harder to influence that quality of code if that culture hasn't been built to enable that. I think one of your interviews with a guy called Terence, it was cut short, and because Terence had to go, he
Yeah.
was talking about how it's important to make sure that the team are, operating as a unit really well. And I think he was a manager, and he was talking about how the ways he did that. And it's, if you don't create that culture of people who give a shit, then either you'll just manage to recruit the people who care. Actually, people just go, oh, well, who cares? It's like, yeah, well, that code isn't as good as it could be, but you know what? I'm not going to bother to refactor that. We're just going to ship another feature tomorrow. And I think that's when you start to get, it's like, the what people call bit rot in Windows. Hey, I need to reinstall Windows. You get it in software. Software quality, to me, doesn't, you ship it. I've never written software that's as good as it could be. You can always improve it, right? But it always needs new features. And if I don't spend my time just adding more and more features on, without looking back and giving some care and attention to the code that is already there, improving it, by improving it, I mean making it clearer, easier to read, better tested, or matching business requirements. The drive to do that, your software will rot over time, and your product will rot.
You say drive. I think it's a habit that needs to be instilled at the training level. So these colleges, these boot camps. Yeah, I think these colleges, these boot camps, they need to actually enforce as part of successful completion of a software project that it is tested, and for the people that do test last instead of test driven, that's their decision. But they're gonna realize that it is very challenging to retrofit tests into a code base that's not testable. And so to make a long story short, I guess what I'm attempting to articulate is, right now, this is a software craftsman is a culture of disciplined developers, and discipline is something that is really extraordinary, I think, for someone to have discipline. You have discipline to go to the gym 3 times a week for the last 3 years. You have discipline to run 15 miles a week, right? And so this is something that is out of the ordinary, that you go out your way to do. I think it's important to establish routines or habits early on, and so that it becomes part of the process. You can't imagine writing code without doing it, and it becomes a religious belief of, this is what we do. How can you not do it? And I don't think that's really being done at the foundational level. I don't think that's really being done at the community colleges, at the universities, and at the boot camps. They just have hack this code together, hackathon. And I think it's preaching the wrong message when it comes to building sustainable software. But that's just what I think.
Yeah, because that's the real key thing, is the sustainability in the software, because it's a massive investment for anyone who's paying for it. And you can be paying for it because you're a company who's employing people to write it, or you can be paying for it because you're doing it at your own free time, but you'll put in a lot of time to write software. Software takes a long time to get right. Yeah. And it's that.
At so many different levels. Security, UI, marketing. Like, there's so many different aspects or facets of what it means to get software right.
Yes.
Usability, discoverability. Yeah, we should get paid more. So hold on, I asked you this question earlier. Are developers getting paid what we should? Are we paid too much, or are we paid too little?
I mean, I don't know what it's like in the States, but in the UK, software developers are generally, they're not the high. It's not like they're not like financial traders, but we're reasonably well paid. We're certainly higher than the average salary in general. You see the occasional job, and they want. I saw one in London that was £25,000 for a full-time developer. You get equity in the company, and I looked at it and I thought, it popped up on Stack Exchange, Stack Overflow, and I thought, you got to take that job. Someone's offering you 25. is like you couldn't live in London for 25 grand for a year, you know, to be a software developer in a startup. That's insane. But generally it's quite high, and I think it does need to be high because all of the things that you said, it is a challenge. You know, what you said about discipline, etc., that's just one part of it, because you can, I don't know, let's pick a technology, let's pick, I'm ramping up on Xamarin Forms now, so let's pick Xamarin Forms. So I could learn Xamarin Forms, and I could learn XAML, and I could learn MVVM, and I could write those business-facing tests against that, and I could sit here for 3, 4, 5 years writing that really happily. Don't listen to anything apart from, you know, don't look outside the window, and then all of a sudden I look up 5 years later, man, you know, the software landscape has changed. It's moved on so quickly. So one of the things that you have to balance as a developer is gaining expertise and experience in the technology stack so that you can build that quality software and apply that discipline, but you've always also got to be constantly learning and constantly looking out for new techniques, listening to podcasts, reading blogs, looking at stuff that's, you know,
it's a personal practice.
Yeah,
it's like a dentist. It's like a doctor. It's like a lawyer.
It's like a lawyer.
And so,
So
if what I heard from you, I agree with you. I think we should get paid more because I have so many angry ex-girlfriends because of my dedication, right? People have some children that are angry at them because they weren't there enough, right? Even though we were trying really hard to be providers and design a lifestyle or sustain a lifestyle for our family to live really bougie, really comfortable. I mean, you have to obsess, and something else is being aware of other ecosystems so that you can draw inspiration from it in solving, you know, problems or providing your own solutions. And it's like, honestly, I think we're underpaid. I think we were given the keys to why a business is able to stand up the way that it does, and we are responsible for implementing the decisions that are made. But I mean, we're the Marines, you know, we're the special ops. The generals hand us orders, but we're the ones that actually make it happen. And I don't think they really recognize that. I don't think the industry does. I don't think stakeholders do. So that just might be me having very strong views, but that's what I think currently today.
I think some of that is changing. I think some of it, I mean, Agile, you know, there's a side to Agile, which I said Church of Agile, which here's our technology, we're probably selling it to you, and here's my consultancy fee for coming in and telling you how to do it right. But I mean, Agile is about empowering the team. Agile is about delivering value to the customer. Agile is about getting that value to the customer early, you know, and all of those practices do help to reduce the cost of the software and take the, reduce the cost, but also take the power of the software delivery into the hands of the team, which is the right place for it, I believe.
Yeah.
In the commissioners who are writing it, you know, the people who are commissioning the software, looking, hey, as a spec, and I've written it for you, bang, send it down, get a team in, hire them. You know, that's not the right way to do it. It's down to the small teams who can move quickly, struggling not to use Agile there, but small teams who can move quickly and are empowered, who can build stuff. You can take responsibility for owning that delivery and that production process. That's the exciting thing.
I agree with you. Sean, it's been a pleasure. I have some things I have to take care of. But,
yeah, sure.
What's your Twitter name?
Sean Kieran, SeanKearon. So,
is there any other methods of people discovering what you're up to?
I kind of, no, not really. Twitter's is probably the best place. I don't, yeah, I'm not sort of big in the community or anything. I'll tweet about things occasionally, but yeah, I just like writing code.
Yeah.
So,
All right, Sean, I really appreciate it. Now, when
Me too.
I just like sent you a random message, hey, you want to have a conversation with me? Record it. And you're like, oh, okay. And then I sent you an invite, and I was like, yo, I'm not even going to prep you for what we're going to talk about. I'm just going to hit the record button right now. You're like, okay. And I think this is a really valuable conversation. And it's like, I don't like having an agenda. I just like being spontaneous, and I think value will bubble up when two random strangers that share a passion get together. And so that's what I'm trying to consistently deliver.
I like that
So,
idea. I think it's really valuable. Yeah. So I'm going to
so
try and catch some of your more of your talks with other people.
cool. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's, this is therapeutic for me. It's I've I've been in isolation for a while, and I'm trying to get out of it. So this is me challenging myself. And there was also a book that kind of inspired. There's a book that did inspire me to take on this behavior of not just writing a technical blog and showing code, but actually like talking to like-minded people. And sooner or later, I'm going to start getting people that I don't share the same opinion with. But there's a book that this is me manifesting it right now. There's a book called The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. And so this is me attempting to apply what that book says. I'm probably operating at maybe 3X right now, but I mean, I've been trying to pump out a recorded conversation every day. It's kind of hard because some people's like they either ignore me or they want to know too much, and I'm like, oh, I mean, I'm not going. I'll just try to find somebody else then. So, all right, Sean, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I just pinned your URL. I also blog. There's not much there, but yeah, if you ever want to look at that, that's some of the stuff that I've thought about over the years. But yeah, I just pinged you the link. So,
and I just clicked on the link, and hold up. Is it okay if I share my screen top or share my desktop to show it real fast?
Sure.
And if I do share full screen, hey Cookie, and present to everyone, I'll show you where we at. This Atlantic Breeze. What is this?
That's the name of my blog. So I live in a place called Cornwall, which is near the Atlantic, right by the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay.
There's nothing but Atlantic Ocean between me and you right now. Lots of it. And yeah, just some stuff I've blogged about. That's my not very regular.
Okay. Hey, you're actually doing a tutorial.
It's not much. There wasn't. I like message-based architectures. I'm really into that as a pattern. I think it's a pattern that sort of changed my life and thinking about software systems. And this is Rebus, which is a little container about to run that in an Azure web app. So no infrastructure. You basically got a message bus, a high scalable service. There wasn't any docs about it, so I thought I'd log it.
I like this message bus. Well, not this one specifically because I haven't read up on it, but like, and that's probably another conversation we could have at a later time. Sure. Is leveraging a message bus to build software and like relying on it. It becomes really easy to extend, but my personal experience based on the way I've implemented a message bus is even though it's really easy to extend, it's harder to understand the system. But we could probably have that conversation another time. Hey, this
I'd love to have that.
Heartbeat controller. Hey, I want to read this. This is interesting. You're a fan of Fluent API. All right. I'm just going through it. All right, and this website is let me go back. How do I go back? Up here. This is Atlantic Breeze. Or no, this is how you say this? Kieran?
Irish.
Kieran.blogspot.co.uk. All right, let me go back. All right, Sean, yo, thank you very. Oh,
nice one.
Stop presenting so I could visibly thank you. All right, Sean, thank you so much for doing this with me. I really appreciate it. Yo, we're gonna be like bar buddies soon. Now I'm really vibing with you right now. So good stuff.
Cool.
Take care. I'm hitting the stop broadcast button in 3, 2, 1.